Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. And as you know, this is Mary Baker, and we are on episode 36, Your Beliefs and Values, and most importantly, why they matter. So this month, it's going to be all about the concepts of what our beliefs are and what we value. And I put them together because I personally think they really do fit together. And I also think it's often hard to talk about one without really talking about the other, right? I mean, I think that your beliefs and values are really, really important and extremely important if you're working on your self-confidence, your integrity, feeling good about yourself, lowering your anxiety, and generally creating the life that you can feel really, really good about, okay? So there are a couple of thoughts I want to talk about today in regard to why these matter so much. The first one is, I think your beliefs and values are driving the bus, whether you recognize it or not. They are driving everything you think, feel, and do. They're the reason why you behave certain ways, why you may react certain ways, why you might feel certain ways. For example, if you really value kindness, it's going to be difficult when you witness someone being unkind to another or unkind to you, and you're probably going to work on being kinder to others. You believe that kindness matters, and you value kindness. You think it's important. And every one of us has both a universal feeling of why kindness might matter, but also your own personal why, often your story behind why it matters so much to you. So take some time today and think about when you go to do something, when you have a certain thought, a certain feeling, pay attention to what values and beliefs might be behind that, just to get a sense. I mean, I think it's really important for us to do this work anyway, which is why I'm devoting a whole month to it, 5 weeks, in fact, 5 episodes around beliefs and values. I think they're that important. The second thing is often when we are fighting with one another, we are fighting about values. It's easier to see that out in the world where you see wars between two countries around spiritual values or financial values, values of history, on and on, but also in our personal relationships. I think it raises a whole bunch of fear if you are afraid that maybe your partner or your child is not living out, agreeing to, or holding a value that you have that really matters to you. We're also going to fight for what we believe in, whether it's carrying a sign in a protest or a strike, or with our partner or with our sister or parent or best friend, because it matters that much to us. So we're often fighting about values. When I work with people, I often try to help them find some kind of sweet spot that honors each of them the best they can around the value. Usually, they're not too far off on the value itself. It's how it's carried out. Okay. The other thing is I believe that when you live your life more in alignment with your beliefs and values that you feel good about, here's the thing. The first thing is you make better decisions that you are comfortable with, right? There's the obvious. They are driving your decision points oftentimes. What is the right thing to do? What is the best thing to do here? What is the hard thing to do? What's the ethical thing to do, and why would I make that decision? Your internal locus of control So in other words, you are focused on yourself, not out there, not what other people would want you to do and why, not what other people believe or what other people value, but more on what do you believe, what do you hold true for yourself, and what have you decided are your values? And those are your guideposts. Those make it a no-brainer in your relationships and in your life. An internal locus of control as opposed to external validation, an external locus of control. And a lot of times I think this can be so insidious that we may not even realize we have externalized that control, right? We swear up and down, oh no, I'm in charge of me. I don't let other people determine my decisions. But if you are worried about what other people really are going to think, you might be externalizing just a bit. So the other reason is that it's going to raise your self-esteem. I personally believe that unless and until we do get very clear about what we believe in and what we value, it's really hard to have solid self-esteem. It will lower your anxiety. In the sense, if your anxiety is emanating from the internal fight that I've talked about before, where part of you really wants to do the right thing and the other part is terrified or not courageous enough to do that yet. So there's that internal fight, which can create a lot of anxiety. You know what you need to do and you're not ready to do it because you're scared. So you're fighting yourself, which we can't feel grounded and good about ourselves if we're in the middle of a fight with ourselves. I think it lowers feelings of guilt and shame. Remember, they are separate. Guilt is what I've done. Shame is who I am. I think when we're talking about beliefs and values, I think they interconnect with both guilt and shame. If I do something that goes against one of my values, healthy guilt, right? I don't feel good about that, and I want to make it right. Worse, though, is when we make decisions or we allow other people to have us go against our values, because that's really what's happening, our integrity drops and we don't feel like good people. If you grew up being shamed, this is going to be even harder for you to shake, because you can immediately go to the awful. Well, I'm just an awful person. Well, I'm just horrible. No one can love me, that kind of stuff. Finally, I think you're going to feel so much more grounded and proud of yourself and empowered and encouraged and confident and want to connect more and live out loud because your insides are matching your outsides. You can breathe now. And you want to show that to the world. Conversely, I think we retract and we can isolate because we're embarrassed and we really just don't feel good about ourselves deep down. But why is it so hard, right? I mean, why do we vacillate so much? Why do we sit on the fence? If it is a no-brainer, why is it so hard to live them out? The first reason is because we tend to people please. And you can be anywhere on this continuum of people pleasing. And you can swear up and down you don't care what other people think and still people please. It can happen. Because we take on others' values and beliefs. We lose who we really truly are in our relationships to survive. Remember, you've heard me say this before. This happened early on in childhood. It was absorbed when we were most impressionable. To doubt, and the belief was, I have to doubt what I really believe and value because it doesn't go well when I express that, or God forbid, act that out or live that out. If your parents gave you a hard time for saying, hey, my brother's beating up on me, and your dad's like, oh, toughen up, get over it. Whoa. You were just told to ignore what you value. You value not being beaten up. You value being loved and protected, right? You value safe relationships, but you were just told that if you value that, you're not going to survive very long in this family, so you better stuff it. We don't want to risk the rejection. We don't want to risk the ridicule, the abandonment, if we live them out. especially if we're growing and thus growing away from the norms of the partnership in the group. So typically what happens is, and people tell me this all the time, Mary, I was so strong and confident before I started dating them or becoming their friend or working in this workplace. And slowly, insidiously, bit by bit, day by day, you started taking on the values of others and kind of quietly tucking away your own. Because it became very clear early on, yeah, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. In order to stay in this relationship, stay in this workplace, I can't be who I really am. It's too dangerous. And what drives this is the fear of lack, the fear that there isn't another person better suited for you, a better friendship out there, that no one else will really hire you, maybe no one will date you now. On and on. So it's the irrational, right? Irrational fears that will keep us staying in that relationship. And the other one is we tell ourselves, oh, but they're such nice people and this is great. Look at all this other good stuff. And remember the rule of thumb. All that great stuff never, never, never compensates for you having to lose who you are. Ever, ever, ever. Remember that. We struggle because it's hard to let go of outcomes and trust that it'll be better in the end as well. You know, whistleblowers come to mind for me here. It takes a lot of courage to be willing to lose your job and maybe not be able to get a new one very quickly if you speak for the group and do the right thing. Finally, we lack self-trust. But here's the catch-22. If we don't live by our beliefs and values, there's no way in hell we can trust ourselves. That's why it's so helpful, I think, to really take a look at your environments. Who's around you, who has similar values, and therefore can support yours. They want you to live out the things that you believe in. They want you to honor yourself because they honor themselves. So as we grow, we get healthier. And a couple things I would just want you to know. First of all, you're just going to naturally turn towards wanting to feel good about you. And that's going to include that congruence that you often hear me talk about. You're going to want your insides to match your outsides. You're going to want naturally to feel good about yourself, to have some really good guiding principles that you've given deep thought to, lots of journaling, lots of conversations around. I also think that as we become more courageous and committed and on purpose because we're growing, we become more driven and brave. I think growth begets growth and bravery begets bravery. You know, we want to take that risk because of one of my favorite quotes, courage is not the absence of fear, but the idea that something is just a little bit more important. The hard part is outgrowing, like we've talked about before, because it's really normal to outgrow others as we go through this process, which can be very, very painful, as I've talked about before on the podcast. And it's just part of the process. I think it's a little unavoidable to at least realize that we're going to probably detach, let go a little bit in our relationships, if not have to walk away. I often witness when clients reach this point of what I call no return. You just can't undo awareness. You can't unring the bell because they eventually get to a place where they need to honor themselves. And it's not that you want to lose relationships. No one does. But they realize there are some tough choices to make going forward. Okay, so let's talk about values first. There are, oh my gosh, endless values. You can value whatever you want to. And that often can become overwhelming for people. It has a lot to do with paring down, deciding, choosing, not valuing everything, really committing to it. So here are some common ones, though, because a lot of people say, what do you mean, Mary? What do you mean by values? So the typical ones are like honesty, being honest, not telling a lie, telling the truth, telling on ourselves. Trust is a big one. Trust is a big one of mine. I don't think healthy relationships are possible without trust. I think it's not love as the foundation. You can love someone to pieces and not trust them as far as you can throw them. I think trust is the foundation. It makes everything else possible in a relationship. And without it, conversely, a lot of people feel that everything else is moot. I think we need to trust ourselves. I think self-trust, like I just talked about a moment ago, is at the core of self-confidence. Gratitude is another one that's very common. Being grateful, not being selfish, appreciating what we have, appreciating others, appreciating ourselves. Effort, that's a big one in this country, in the U.S. at least. Working hard, making things happen, earning, putting the effort in, not being lazy. Responsibility is another one. That's another favorite of mine. Taking responsibility for what belongs to you, your thoughts, feelings, choices, behaviors. Other people can count on you to be responsible, to step up and make it happen. Reliability comes to mind. Love is a big one. Love is the obvious one. That love matters. Love creates bonds in our relationships. Self-love is at the core of healthy self-esteem. Compassion, meaning, creativity, and faith are some other ones. Again, the list is endless. Throughout this process this month, my hope is that if you already haven't done so in your life, that you're able to create a list that works for you. So values drive our behavior. If I value integrity, I'm not going to go rob banks this afternoon. If I value love, I'm going to commit to my close relationships. I'm going to be a nurturing mom. I'm going to love my friend. I'm going to love my sister. I'm going to love my partner. I value being loved. So values drive our behavior. Even if they're negative, even if we value success, and if that's my top value, I'm going to value that above maybe connection, maybe time with others. Maybe I don't care about stepping over other people to be successful. So values matter. The other companion to values, like we said, are what do you believe? Now, there are beliefs about life, there are beliefs about yourself, and I'm going to go over this briefly because next week we're going to dedicate a whole episode to beliefs. But things like I am, like things I believe about myself. Do I believe I'm intelligent? Do I believe I'm funny? Do I believe I'm attractive, lazy, etc.? What about other people? What do you believe about other people? Like at the core, are they good? Or can you never trust anyone? Or somewhere in between? What about your beliefs about life? Is it short? Is it a drag? Is it awful? What about your spiritual beliefs? What about social justice? What about political beliefs? What about religious beliefs? There are some limiting beliefs that we'll get into more next week, like I can never be happy, other people hate me, or I'm in charge of my happiness, conversely. I mean, they can be positive or negative or neutral. You can have a combination of all three. But beliefs drive everything. There's a saying, thoughts are things, beliefs make them so. So if I think a thought long enough, it will become a belief, and I'll form that. And that will determine how I live my life. If I believe life is short, obviously, I'm not going to be sitting on my butt. If I believe people are good, then I'm going to assume people will step up and help me if I need them. That if I'm really out there in the world and I'm hurting or I need help, that someone will pull over and help me. If I don't believe that's true, I'm not going to raise my hand and ask for help. If I believe it's a weakness to ask for help, hell no am I going to raise my hand, because I'm not going to want anybody to think that I am weak. So you can get a sense of how beliefs and values both work together to form who we are. Now, where do these beliefs come from? I want you to think about that this month. They can come from a bunch of different places. We want to really think about where do we get ours from, because you also want to consider the source. For example, a lot of our beliefs come from our family of origin. And if you grew up in a family where, let's say, there was a lot of victim stance, a lot of hurt, a lot of betrayal, beliefs about other people being good probably aren't there. It's probably the opposite. Don't trust anybody. You second guess everyone's intentions and their motives. You probably internalized that very easily and witnessed that, right? It played out in your life. You probably drew people to you to betray you. That's the other thing. The emotional attachments can just create evidence in our life. We're like, see, I told you. Can't count on people. So think about where your beliefs come from, either by growing up other people's beliefs we internalize, things we experienced. I think that's a big one, and I want to say this with lots of love and compassion. If you have betrayal or trauma, that's a big thing. And of course, that helped you create beliefs to protect yourself, because you don't want that to happen again. Well, I can't leave my door unlocked because then people could want to break in and hurt me. Now, some of these are based in reality. Yeah, that could probably happen. But you get to believe whatever you want to. I also want to say a few things. That first, it's normal and healthy that as you get healthier, you are going to want to maybe add some values, let go of some values you had before, get rid of old beliefs that you feel no longer work for you, and gain some new ones. Grow into some new values and grow into some new beliefs. I also want to say very quickly, it's normal and healthy to be a little bit freaked out by that. These are huge seismic shifts that we're making in our life. These are no small potatoes. So I just want to normalize those two things. One of the reasons I think is that healing is inside out, like you've heard me say. So in other words, as we heal ourselves and embrace more good things about ourselves, more compassion, we see ourselves as good people, we're kind, we're loving. We start embracing the possibility of that in others. Again, remember, you see others as you secretly see yourself. The other reason is hopefully we're in less of a victim mindset. We're internally locused. We take responsibility for what we want in our life. We're therefore less about guarding our heart, like Brené Brown calls foreboding joy. If you open up to joy, you're going to open up to pain. And we're more about loving others as much as we can, because then we start realizing life is short. So that's an example. The other part to this, I think, is that a lot of this healing can come from being around healthy others who make it safe for us to heal. They give us what is called a corrective emotional experience, where maybe we're finally treated well. We're around people who have healthy boundaries, who just let us have our own thoughts and feelings. We get away from the toxic relationships, from the past trauma, the abuse, closed-minded people, people who are afraid to be hopeful. So it changes. We change. We work on changing our environments. We take responsibility for what we are absorbing. So, as you can see, beliefs and values drive the bus. And again, you can be anywhere you need to be on this continuum from, oh, you're solid. You've done this work already on your beliefs and what you value. you're good, to all the way down to the other end. You're like, I don't even know what I value anymore. I'm not sure what I believe. I have conflicting beliefs. I'm afraid to be different. I'm afraid to commit. That's okay. Wherever you are, meet yourself wherever you are today. It's okay. And I also want to say that as you go through this process and this coming year, you can make tweaks to what you believe and value. You can have experiences that change that for you, and that is all okay. It's kind of like an irony. On one hand, I think we need to get really solid and don't do this work lightly and take it very seriously and give it lots of thought, lots of meditation, lots of why behind, and at the same time, be open and flexible and teachable and humble, that we can always be expansive. We can become more open. We can grow. We don't have all the answers. So it's both. Finally, I think a big thing that I'll continue to talk about is it is normal, especially if you struggle with anxiety, to wish you could live out that value or live out that belief, even if it's not one you've told anyone about or even told yourself about, because you want to be that person and you're not there yet. Know that that's why I want you to do this work this month. That's totally fine. That's how it works. You may not be a person who is on time and punctual and organized, but boy, you would love to be more organized and have that as one of your values and also your beliefs that organization is important. Don't worry. I want you to put that down, because if that's on your heart, all that means is you just have some work to do to really grow into them, so that someone looking in from the outside would say, oh yeah, they're organized. Look at them. So I just want you to remember that that's okay. Wherever you are is okay. So today we did kind of a high-level view of why I think your beliefs and values are a huge, and I mean huge, part of your empowerment, that they drive everything you think, feel, and do, that they're integral to your healthy self-esteem, and I think your happiness. In the coming episodes this month, I'm going to be breaking down our lists of values, our beliefs, and really beginning to hone them to a place that feels really good for you. So today, I also have a bonus download for this episode, and there's some journal questions so you can deepen the work. I want you to take this work further, and I encourage you to post some things that you're comfortable posting in our Facebook group, or maybe even hit me up on the Soar with Mary Instagram account or on Twitter. Let's do this work together. Every time you put yourself out there a little bit, you make it safe for someone else to do the same, and you don't feel alone in the work. I keep hearing from you guys. You love this podcast because it's helping you feel like everyone else is working alongside you. And I want to let you know that I'm talking to enough of you that is true. You guys have a community, and you guys are all working like hell at this stuff, and it's great. So if you're already a subscriber, you'll get that bonus download today in your newsletter. If not, go ahead and sign up at www.ownitpowercast.com. Go ahead and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get that every Tuesday. That's all I typically send people. I don't blow up your inbox with a bunch of emails. And remember, pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.